Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator. Here on America's Next, I have Scott Hampton here with me today, and I will tell you, this man has a powerful story. So I'd like for you to follow and subscribe at America's Next Motivator on Facebook, locate us on YouTube, and most importantly, let somebody know that we're getting ready to have a conversation with Scott Hampton here. How you doing today, Scott? You doing good? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Today I'd like for you to tell your story like you've never told it before. This platform was created for you. And my first question is, where are you from?
I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. After I was adopted, I grew up in a town called Westerville.
What was it like for you growing up there?
It was definitely different. It was like it was a culture shock, I'd say, to say the least.
If I'm not mistaken, you didn't live there for your whole entire life, did you?
No, I lived there from the age of 10 off and on until I was 18.
So what was transpiring in your life before the age of 10?
I was in more than a dozen foster homes. I had 2 ICU placements. And when I was put up for adoption, well, I was placed in the ICU by my mother's husband. And then when I was adopted with a sister I didn't know I had at the age of 10. And so that was basically, in and out of foster care, in and out of RTCs, residential treatment facilities, and then being adopted at the age of 10.
Can you talk to me about your experience in foster care? I know some people have positive experiences and some people have not so positive experiences, but it sounds like you were in multiple foster homes before the age of 10 years old. And I just want you to kind of unpack that experience. What was that like for you?
I guess with any family, you have a different set of morals and values, beliefs that they try to instill within the family. And a lot of foster parents didn't really didn't really understand what those different morals and values were doing to me as a youngster. And I say that to say this. When that happens, you just grow up confused. You don't know what the difference between right and wrong is. You don't know what to do, what rules to follow, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So that was the mental stuff that was going on in my head. And now, as far as my experience in foster care, I was never abused in foster care. It was only by my mother's husband and my adopted parents. So I grew up horseback riding in foster homes. I had some pretty good experiences in the foster care system. So, well, besides RTCs, residential treatment facilities, which are primarily ran like jails for young kids that have behavioral problems or educational problems. And if Children's Services can't find a placement, they'll send you to these RTCs for residential and for schooling needs.
So let me get this straight. You were being abused by your stepdad, which caused you to go into foster care, but then you were being moved periodically, and then on one of those turns where it was time for you to move, they said, "Oh, can't find a place for him to go. Let's put him in a residential treatment center."
Absolutely. They called it temporary custody, which means that they couldn't find a placement for me. So instead of, digging a little bit deeper, yes, they sent me to an RTC.
And you were moving just because you just couldn't stay in that place any longer, just because of policy, or were you having behavioral issues? What was the reason why you were being moved from place to place to place?
Nobody really understood the trauma that I guess that I had endured, growing up, and not understanding trauma can cause severe behavior problems, mental problems. I guess I could say breakdowns. I wouldn't say it's acting out; it's just breakdowns.
It must have really traumatized you when you had to be removed from the care of your mother, and being away from your mother, being away from your home environment must have traumatized you early. And so, what were you doing? Were you fighting? Were you being a comedian? What sorts of ways were you showing your frustration with your circumstance?
I guess it's funny that you said being a comedian, because
Yeah.
I mean, there were times that I thought what I was doing was funny.
Yep.
Now, as far as my acting out, my thing was setting fires. Like I like to set fires. And there were some of the foster kids that I didn't like that I ended up, fighting. So it's a combination of, me wetting the bed, which is an issue for some people, for, foster parents, having to deal with that. And then the fighting, and then the fire starting, and, yeah, I can imagine how it could affect, a grown person's way of life.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like from an early age you got a specific tag on you, which was, this young man starts fire. They might have said, "Oh, he's an arsonist," or he's a fire starter. Did that become a tag that you had to take on and deal with throughout your years?
So when I was adopted, in the process of being there from day one to a year and a half, they were addressing my the wetting the bed. The adopted parents were doing that, but they were also addressing the setting fires issue, which I was linked in with the Westerville fire chief, and I saw videos that were traumatic to me, and it made me stop, of someone being set on fire and hurting, and the after effects of what they go through and all that other stuff. It just made me stop altogether.
Wow.
But within that year and a half after living with my adopted parents, there were a lot of controlling issues. There were a lot of control issues on behalf of the adopted mother. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that not that it really mattered at the time, but I didn't know that they had been through 2 prior divorces.
When did you get adopted? And before you even answer that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to appreciate your loyalty, appreciate your presence today, and appreciate you coming along for the ride of Scott Hampton's story. But he's going to have to mute his device when I'm talking, because there's a big reverb, and we want replay value. So he's helping us out by muting every time I talk. That's why we got to go back and forth mechanically. Go ahead.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. How old were you when you got adopted?
I was 9 going on 10.
Okay. And so how many placements did you actually have before you got adopted? Can you recall?
Over 20. I got adopted with a sister I didn't know I had. We were on a TV show called Wednesday's Child, from ABC 6 in Columbus. So that's the Capital, Children's Service Agency is the agency that I went through. So unbeknownst to me, there were two prior divorces. Come to find out, she was getting verbally abused in her past relationship, and he was also getting verbally abused in his past relationship. And as far as I know, Children's Services never really looked into the reasons for those divorces, and then addressed them personally, one-on-one, with a possible psychologist to see if there were any issues. And then come to find out, a year and a half after living with them, my sister and I were both abused by them physically, to the point to where my sister was removed permanently. They then put me in an RTC called Franklin Village, which is no longer around. While at that RTC, there was no mediator. There was no volunteer like CASA or whoever to represent me, when their attorney kept coming in and saying, hey, do you want to go back? Do you want to go back? Do you want to go back? Look at what you're sleeping on. You're sleeping on a concrete slab and eating off of a metal tray every day. But you can go home and sleep in a waterbed and pick whatever you want out of the refrigerator. Why would you want to be here, when you can be there? So Children's Services actually placed me back into their custody, knowing of my past ICU placements, and then now being adopted and abused by these people that promised me a better life. It kind of made no sense to me, especially for the best interest of the child, to be placed back into that home.
Right. You just illuminated several different things, and we got questions coming in from the audience, and we're going to get to each of them. But even before we do that, I want to ask you to explain a couple things, and I just bear with me here. You said that you were placed with a sister that you didn't know that you had. Can you explain that? And then I'll go to my next question.
So Children's Services came to me and they said, hey, you have a sister and we're going to put you guys on a TV show called Wednesday's Child together.
Did you know you had?
No. I mean, I knew that I had a younger sister and a younger brother, but I never knew that I had an older sister.
My mind is blown. My mind is blown because it sounds like what you're saying, and nod yes if I'm saying it correctly. You're going through all of this stuff. You're in foster care. You have no idea about an older sister. And then you have a social worker pull you to the side and says, hey, you have an older sister and we're going to be placing you with her. Wow. Okay.
So when I went back to the adopted family, they tried a new approach. They didn't have any of their old friends. Their new approach was church. They were going to church now. They were godly people, which they weren't before. They put me in a private school, which I didn't know how to take that. Like it was all this stuff going on. That especially was just too much. So I ended up getting expelled. When I got expelled from the 8th grade, I was not allowed to. It was so bad that I was not allowed to return to that middle school's high school the next year. Like I was completely. Go ahead.
What? Let's answer this question from Lauren Harris. He says, "What year was this, Scott? Was this prior to the now in place national standards for becoming a foster parent?" So, what year was this when you were?
Okay, so. This was right around 87, 88.
Okay. And now I want to ask you, was this a situation where your adoptive parents wanted you back? Were they saying, hey, no, we'll get it together because we want Scott back?
They wanted both of us back, but my sister said no.
Why?
She just didn't want to go back. Um, I I don't think it should have been up to the children. Like even today, like as I sit here in front of this audience in front of you, I still have questions as to why it was even up to me to go back. It should have never been in the best interest of the child to be placed back in that situation. And that's something that I fight with myself even today. Like, would I have been better off in foster care, or would I have just been better off, with the adopted parents? But I guess as I sit here now and I look back, we're going to get to the better part of this whole story, this whole coming to be, I guess you could say, here in a couple minutes.
So, I totally agree with you when you say that shouldn't have been your choice as to what was going to happen next, especially at that young age, because it's almost like asking you to plot the path to your own future. But here you are after 15, 20 placements having an identity issue where you don't really know who you are. And so when you don't know who you are, having to tell somebody where to steer your life it's a tough, if not impossible thing to have to deal with as a young child.
The other thing that occurred when I got adopted, my name was changed from Curtis Lee Duff to Scott William Hampton. So now it's like I do have two identities. Was I able to leave that that young boy, where he was and continue with my life? Or do I still battle with Curtis Lee Duff and Scott William Hampton? Like it,
Wow.
Scott Hampton has a purpose. Curtis Lee Duff didn't. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. In fact, I think that you're onto something absolutely huge when we talk about the wellness of young people in care who will one day transition out into the world as adults. Who's talking to them about their change in identity? Who's sitting in front of you and saying, hey, today we're going to talk about the way that your identity is changing. And we're talking about two different levels of identity change. The first identity change is that you're in foster care now. You went from whatever your experience was to now being in foster care, which may be new to you. You might have never heard of foster care. But then after that, there's another possibly subsequent identity change, which is now you got adopted and now your name is legally changed. So when and where did anyone ever sit down with you and say, hey, were you having identity issues before you got adopted? And then now that you are adopted, let's help you to become solid in your identity. Did it ever happen?
It never happened. And when I was adopted at the age of 9, 10 years old, Cedric, I didn't even know how to read or write. I didn't even know how to spell my own name.
Hello. Are you exactly?
Dude, I was in over 20 placements in RTCs. I was never able to gain any type of ground where something can be fulfilled, like education, like because of all the different placements. All those school systems being bounced around. How can you learn? How can you find yourself? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And when you say that you weren't able to spell your name, that stops me dead in my tracks, because it puts a metric on how devastated you were, just how traumatized you were at that point in your life. For you to have any difficulty talking about what your name is, how your name is spelled, when is your birthday. I mean, you should almost know your social security number at a certain age. And so, yeah, go ahead.
This, I didn't, I have no problem talking about what I've been through and what has made me, because I believe that the things that I've gone through and the things that I've done could help change, other people's perspective on how they live. And I guess that's the whole reason why we're here right now. Now, Cedric, I didn't stop wetting the bed until I was 13 years old. They found something wrong with it was trauma.
Wow.
And it took some nasal spray, to use the nasal spray for 6 months for me to never wet the bed anymore. So go ahead.
When you say that you were wetting the bed because of trauma, and the solution for that was giving you nasal spray, but you say it was mental. I'm wondering, would an effective relationship with a pair of parents helped you to overcome the bedwetting issue?
Repeat that one more time.
Because the bedwetting issue was the result of trauma from your perspective, do you feel that if you had a stable relationship with a mom and dad, that could have helped you to tackle the bedwetting issue?
It could have. I mean, I don't know, but it's a good possibility, a very good possibility. I don't know the scientifics behind it, but I can only imagine that that healing would have taken place if I had just someone to care, I guess, and to listen to me.
So with all these moving parts around you, and you're becoming a teenager, now we're talking about a 15-year-old. A 15-year-old in an ideal situation is looking forward to getting his license. He's looking forward to going to homecoming. He might be participating in a few sports. But you, going into the age of 15, was being treated a variety of ways because of your experience. And it sounds like nobody and nothing was helping you to get a handle on your future.
I absolutely. I mean, that's the exact way that it happened. Now, early on, like around 13, I started running away looking for my birth family. This is only like a couple months. I get expelled from the 8th grade. They turn around and try to homeschool me. No. You're not. I'm not. Now you're forcing me to not only lay my head here with you guys, with you abusers, the people that took away the only family that I ever had, to making me stay there during the day around my abusers. You're holding me captive because people knew what you did, and you don't want people asking questions like, hey, what's going on in the house now? What's this? What happened? Where's your sister? Now you're holding me captive in this house, trying to homeschool me. I don't want to be successful. I don't want to be somebody that you want me to be now, so I'm out of here. They gave me the option, either you're going to stay here and learn, or you're going to be out of that house at 6 o'clock in the morning when Bill leaves. I'm sorry, or 6 o'clock in the afternoon when he gets home, or the doors are going to be locked. I said, well, what time is it? I don't want to learn, so what time is it? Okay, I'm going to walk out this door, and please lock it behind me. So I ran the streets, but running the streets never really got me anywhere as far as finding my family. I found the wrong kind of families. Go ahead.
How long did it take for you to find yourself in danger after you got out there on those streets?
It's funny that you say that, because being in foster care, being in all those different types of placements, it's like I really didn't have a sense of danger or a sense of fear. I just went straight to it and said, "Hey, how can I make some money out here?"
You were already dangerous.
If that's the way you want to look at it, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. It didn't land me anywhere but lengthy prison sentences. I served 2 1-year sentences, and then on my last number, I served 14 straight. I got locked up in 2003 and got out in 2017.
I know that you're not saying to me that essentially you had an abusive stepfather, which landed you on the foster care train, and you went directly from foster care to incarceration. I know there must be a space in between there where you had a decent life, but because it sounds like you're telling me you went straight from foster care to incarceration.
I mean, if you want to look at it like that, I mean, my adopted parents still had that custody over me. And every time I got in trouble, I either went to, DH downtown, or the Westerville police officers drove me back to the house, depending on what it was. But there was lengthy periods of times, I mean, months on end, a couple years, that sometimes I went back, sometimes I didn't. There was sometimes I would call them and be like, "Hey, my feet are about frozen. I need help. I want to come home." "Oh, we don't know what to tell you. You made those choices. Call a church. They'll help you."
What did that do to you emotionally at that time in your life? Because I'm collecting all the factors. We never talked about how you solved your identity issue. We never talked about how we solved your attachment issues, whether it be your sisters or your family in general. And now your adopted family is not allowing you to come back home. Your toes are freezing off. So what did you do next?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I served a year in prison the first time, because I saw a car started and I just hopped in it and I got warm while I drove around. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, to me back then, you can never be wrong to try to survive. That was my whole mentality. It was just, I guess you could say, fight or flight. And I can't fight them. I can't win in this situation. So every road has led me right back to abusers. And I couldn't win. So now I had to take matters into my own hands, and that didn't, you're right. Problems weren't solved. I was overprescribed when I was young. The adoptive parents did EKGs and stuff on me, and everything came. My brain functioned well, so they took me off of the Ritalin and the Adderall because I didn't need it. So I'm sorry.
After they had
the children's services had me on it. The adopted parents didn't want me on it. So they had testing done, and then they eventually just shaved me off, of the medication.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all being along with us for the ride here. As you can see, Scott was dealt a hand of adversity. It was not easy. Yolanda Riley, did your adoptive parents ever try to intervene and help get your life back on track? Do you have a relationship with them today? We're gonna touch on that question, and we're gonna get into the next chapter with Scott Hampton right after this brief message. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you, and we're right back with Scott Hampton. Scott, you had a question come in right before the break. Yolanda Riley asked, "Do you have a relationship with your adoptive family today, and were those tears ever mended?"
Sorry. I do not have communication with them. I choose not to. I don't know where they are, nor do I really want them in my life. I mean, they did absolutely nothing for my well-being, even though they might think they did. All the materialistic stuff doesn't matter to me. You know, they took me. I'm a really good horseback rider. I'm a certified horseback rider and instructor. I'm a certified sailing instructor. So they were well-off individuals, had very good jobs, but all the materialistic stuff that they ever did, I guess that was the whole reason why, the cops always took me back to their house. Like, look at this big house you live in. You know, why would you want to disrespect your parents like that? You know, why? You know, they're the ones with the money. They're the ones paying the taxes. So it was like, I was always made out to be the liar, you know, and I don't know. There's proof, you know, you know what I mean? Go ahead.
When you started going to jail or prison, what effect did that have on you? Was that the point where you started thinking about making your life into a better thing?
The first two times, no. It was just a breeding ground for survival, if that makes any sense. How can I survive better when I get out of what I'm in? How can I survive better when I'm out? You know what I mean? Like, who can I link up with in here that has, you know, plugs on the street that I could definitely interlink with, you know, or link the people that I'm dealing with these people. You know, how can I do that? My main focus was Ohio State campus. Ohio State campus is huge. So that's where I started off. And drug sales was on campus. So it wasn't until like 2008, 2009, that things started really changing for me. And yeah, I have a smile on my face for a reason.
You know what? The mere fact that you turned it around is already a victory. It's already a phenomenal story when you can say that you've turned your life around for the positive. You know, I'm very, very inspired by that. And, you know, I think we've done enough talking about the adversities of your past. And now I'd like to get right into what you decided to do with your life and where it stands today. Let's go.
I came in from the yard, sat on my bunk. I was working out. I needed a shower. And I heard something about foster care on TV. I watched PBS a lot. I watched PBS a lot in prison. So it was a lady speaking in front of Congress, and she was saying that the foster care is out of control and that they can't fix it. I thought to myself, what do you mean you can't fix it? How is that even possible? Everything that's broken can be fixed, but how? All right. Then I start hearing statistics of teen pregnancy. I start hearing statistics of a suicide. I start hearing statistics on homelessness and substance abuse. But what really struck me was the incarceration part, because most people who are homeless are addicts of some sort. I'm saying most. And being homeless and being addicts tends to lead you to jail or prison. So prison is the end result of the numbers say 1 out of every 4 boys or young men who enter or that age out of foster care will experience incarceration by age 19. Okay. So I got to thinking, from 1950 until now, how many former foster youth have been in and out of prison in this country? And not only have they been in and out, I'm talking about incarceration and recidivism. So where do they go when they get out if they have no family, if they have no support, if they're former fosters? How does that play out? It plays out in the street where they go, and they produce more generations for the foster care and criminal justice systems. If you look at YouTube videos, most of the YouTube videos are, my mom and dad were drug addicts. I'm talking about former foster youth. My mom and dad were drug addicts and they were in and out of jail my whole life. So prison, right, it was a wake up for me in terms of me investigating to see if there were any programs out there specifically for former foster youth. I looked into go ahead.
You began to look for solutions from the inside out, because now when you get on the outside, you'll know what they actually need on the inside. Is that correct?
Yes. It was like this. What would I need in here in prison to make me wake, to help me realize that I need to wake up and do something with my life? And that was about which I developed the program and facilitated it at Mansfield Correctional in Ohio. It deals with respect. It deals with mutual respect. It deals with self-esteem. The program deals with social skills. It deals with moving forward, which is the name of the program. Moving forward is what it's like to move forward with your life, even though we've been through, and I say we've because the program is filled with former foster youth. And there's a whole bunch of empathy going on, a whole bunch, where people can relate. They might know somebody and realize that's in the group, like, hey, now I know why you are the way that you are. They're able to relate, and they might not look at that person in the same way that they did before going through the program. Stopping the cycle. Stopping the cycle of what? Homelessness, substance abuse. It teaches about you know, I've had some good arguments about a piece in that, or you know, a topic in Stopping the Cycle, where it describes the dysfunctional family, you know, or what is dysfunctional, you know. And a lot of people, my responses on that have been, who's to say what I'm doing is dysfunctional, you know? So it explores that a little bit. So in the midst of all this, there were no prison programs specifically for former foster youth. And what's more amazing is that former foster youth can be recognized under almost every single state prison policy in this country. They can be recognized as a cohort, as a group of people that has a body and is governed by a board of directors from them. And they can be affiliated with an outside organization. That outside organization can provide stuff like guest speakers, motivational speakers, fundraisers. The fundraisers would target the, you know, general population. So would the guest speaking. So would the motivational speakers. It opens it. What I'm attempting to do is get former foster youth recognized in corrections, in jails, in juvenile facilities across the country and globally.
I think that what you're talking about is pioneering. I think it's absolutely huge. I'm not into flattery. I like to be honest and be plain. And the way that you're connecting the dots, I think is absolutely key, because there are a lot of people who've been in foster care who are now incarcerated. And that doesn't mean that we never step in. It doesn't mean that we never become a resource. It doesn't mean that because your stepfather beat you when you were a baby, that we are now as a society going to forget about you because you are currently incarcerated. So I'm going to ask a question, and it might not be the best question in the world, but I want you to answer it if you can. Why is it important? Why is it important for us to know who is in foster care, who's incarcerated? Why is it important? You're muted.
There's many reasons. We'll go with the mental health aspect. Why is it okay? You have all these statistics out there, but those statistics shouldn't even be published. The reason being, and I know this for a fact, former foster youth they're not identified when they go through reception. So when you go through intake, when you go to prison, you're never asked the question if you've been in foster care. Never. And I know that for a fact. Nationally, that question is not asked when an inmate is entering the prison system. Never. So how do these numbers even exist? I'll tell you why. I'll tell the audience why too. What they're referring to is the 2005 Midwest study done by Chapin Hall. That's it. The only solid numbers that we have for former foster youth being incarcerated is a study done by the by the California Senate Office of Research, published in 2011. What percentage of polled California state prisoners were once foster care children? That's the headline. If you read that document is the only document that exists where they can actually tally how many former foster youth are incarcerated. Now we'll go back to why it's important. There's not one mental health provider that can properly diagnose former foster youth with, let's just say, undiagnosed PTSD. From what I know from my research, only certain doctors can prescribe PTSD in former foster youth or in foster kids. It has to. There's a certain licensing or a certain background or course that you need to take to be able to do that. Now, the reason I say undiagnosed PTSD is, say I never had PTSD growing up. Now I'm in prison. I have people telling me what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it. Where am I going to go? I can't hide from my problems. I can't run. I can't pack up my stuff and leave. So now I'm faced mentally with these people trying to tell me what to do, how to do it, where to do it. What am I going to do? Right, you know, right. That's just the mental health aspect. Now, as far as getting them to understand what morals, getting them to understand what they've never been taught by foster families or RTCs about morals, about values, about care, about love, about responsibility, about all these things. Who's going to do it? Moving Forward can do it because that's what the program is based on.
That's right.
But who else do they have? Those individuals need some sort of assurance that there's someone that cares about their well-being.
Go ahead. I was going to say that I think that there is an achievement gap when it comes to re-entry to society by youth who've been in a foster care system, because let's say you've done 4 or 5 years, something substantial. So now you're institutionalized. You're not like all the other inmates who might not have went through foster care, because when you get back out into the system, you have a long list of things that you were never, ever taught, just like you said. So you became institutionalized, but when you get back out into society, you might not even know how to grab a mop and bucket. You might not have the social skills, the stability of somebody who's had long-term sustainable relationships. You never had somebody talk to you for an hour telling you that you can and you're great and you're awesome and you're doing the right thing. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Reentry is something that I would love to get involved with, especially for former foster youth. I mean, you know, doing the right application process and getting individuals that have been through the system together. I think, especially on a chunk of property where they can live and work, which I have ideas for that. I think that the overall success of them as a group, they'll thrive because they would be given a chance that they never had, and other people around them understand what they're going through. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. Like me, I can look at someone and be like, okay, yeah, there's something wrong. It's just like I have that sense of fear because I heard Oprah describe what the sense of fear is, and now I understand what it is. You know what I mean? And I take that back to foster care, and now I apply it in my life. And it's like when I see everyday people, when I see them, I'm like, I've lived with someone like you, and I don't like you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. You know, you are a human services pioneer, because the route that you're taking with your decisions can impact millions of people. I want to be one of the first people. I'll hop in line and let you know that I want to support you. I want to partner with you. I want to help you address this cause. And it hits home with me because I have a younger brother who is currently in jail for 20 to 40 years. And when I think about accountability for your actions, and I think about all the stuff that you're saying about being prepared to make the proper decisions, you know, we were all sitting at a counselor's table when a social worker told us that we were never going back to live with our biological family and that our mother had passed away. And he was sitting at the table laughing and joking because he was too young to understand what was going on. And so he was already being institutionalized before he even had a real understanding of reality. And so what you're saying is, don't forget about the millions of young people who became adults and are now incarcerated because they never had some of the normalities of life that everybody needs. Go ahead.
So currently I'm working with We Lift LA. The moving forward was accepted by the California Department of Corrections. I have another company in Michigan, which Cedric, I wanted to break the news to you on the channel here today. I spoke with an executive CEO. I spoke with her executive vice president. I spoke with their nonprofit attorney, and I spoke with their strategic researcher director, and strategic researcher.
I understand.
It's whoever does like all their grants and stuff like that. So it's an RTC. It's an RTC, and they want to try to do something with me here in Ohio.
Wow.
So with California accepting the program, and then Michigan wanting to do something, and possibly even in Michigan, and I mean, it's just all coming. Like, the foster care to prison pipeline is something that I'm on it, and I think that if former foster youth are given the chance, that they won't go out into society and produce more kids for the foster care and criminal justice systems. Yes, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of nonprofits out there working with individuals or former foster youth that are aging out. But I think there's still a stigma with most that I can't wait till I can sign those papers. That way nobody can tell me what to do anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciated you supporting this gentleman and supporting our platform, America's Next Motivator, today. Let's get some likes in the building. Let's get some hearts in the building. Reach out to Scott Hampton. Find his cause on the internet. His program is called Moving Forward. He can be found on Facebook. Find his cause and support him, because he's embarking on something that's going to impact a whole lot of people. Now, Scott, if you can come back, and we got about a minute and a half to go here. I just need you to answer a couple questions for me. The first one is, what is greatness to you? What is greatness to you?
Greatness to me is success. I mean, I can't. That's what success in this. Success in what I in my mission and my goal.
Okay.
I mean,
that's enough, man. That's more than enough. The people in the audience are really reciprocating the value that you gave out today. Lauren Michaels Harris is sending you a friend request. Lindsay Harrison says, thank you. Glad to hear California is benefiting. And people are really just appreciating your story today. I want to let you know that I've listened to your journey. I've looked at your pages. I see your advocacy, and I respect your journey. I admire your decision to make your life a positive thing. And I also admire the work that you decided to do. You're a prime example of what can happen when somebody decides to turn their life around. You could have, at worst, taken one person off of the face of this earth because of the anger and frustration of what you went through. But instead, you decided to create a solution that's now allowing you to become an asset to society, add value to society, and potentially save and impact the lives of millions of people in a positive way. You, Scott Hampton, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you so much. I guess that my contact information will be on your page, or
put a link. Come back to the show. Put a link in the comment.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll fill that in. Thank you so much for so much for having me, Cedric. I'm thrilled. I'm so thrilled, man. So thrilled.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing it. I love having a conversation with you. I look forward to the future. All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We're right at the ending here. And I just want to thank you again. I know I thanked you a lot of times, but when we have technical difficulties, you don't have to stick around. But today you did. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something for you. All you got to do is stop by and pick it up.